All right, we are on the way to the Peacemaker Season 2 premiere.
And Peacemaker himself, John Cena.
He got nothing to say.
That's not true. That's not true. Okay, it's very important.
We can see.
Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and I made Lego Peacemaker plus the cast of the entire show to coincide with attending the world premiere of Peacemaker Season 2 in New York pretty recently. This was such a cool event, and of course, I had to represent Lego with Peacemaker and the rest of the cast there, all in attendance, walk the red carpet, and get a chance to see the new episodes of Season 2 early. So jump in as we transport ourselves to New York for the Peacemaker world premiere. So my buddy Jonathan, aka Mini Superheroes Today, got invited to the Peacemaker Season 2 world premiere in New York, and he was kind enough to bring me as his +1. But of course, before we got a chance to go to the premiere, I had to do my best to recreate the entire cast of characters for Season 2 in minifigure form, in honor of my buddy Jonathan, who often does videos like this on his channel for all sorts of superhero movies. And so, I dove deep into my Lego collection and tried to piece together, literally, what figures would be best for Peacemaker. Keep in mind, if you're trying to go in completely blind, this video does spoil some characters that have appeared in trailers for Peacemaker, but obviously nothing from episode 1 is going to be spoiled in this video. I've never really done a full-scale minifigure showcase like this before for any other theme other than Ninjago, and this was actually quite a challenge. Obviously, Peacemaker is a very R-rated show, it is certainly TVMA and it earns that reputation, so I doubt that LEGO will really ever touch any of the characters on this list in official form, which meant I had to dive deep into my extensive LEGO minifigure part catalog and try and figure out how best to piece together the minifigures. Obviously, I wanted to depict the main cast of characters for the main crew going into Season 2. You've got Peacemaker himself, Emilia Harcourt, Adebayo, Vigilante, and of course, John Economos. In early trailers for Peacemaker Season 2, we see two members of the Justice Gang from Superman appear, Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl, so of course I had to depict them there with their boss Maxwell Lord. We do also know Judo Master from Season 1 is making a return, as well as a couple of characters from the DCU. Rick Flag Sr. from both Creature Commandos and Superman, plus his new recruit, which is Sasha Bordeaux, who we've seen in the trailers. Peacemaker Season 2 also explores an alternate universe where Peacemaker's father and brother are actual crime-fighting heroes renowned by the public, so I had to depict their suits as seen in a mural in one particular trailer, and then of course I threw in James Gunn for good measure. I also made a custom Superman from the Superman 2025 movie, which I absolutely loved, just because James Gunn said to expect a pretty crazy cameo near the end of the show, and honestly, I cannot think of anybody else it would be. But now I think it makes sense to walk through all the different minifigures showcased here and go in order of kind of the character teams, and I'll explain where I got every single minifigure piece to recreate these characters in case you want to actually recreate them on your own. Let's jump in, of course, with Peacemaker himself. It's time to eat peace! Peacemaker is honestly one of the most complicated figures created for this showcase. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure I could get every single detail right from his costume in the show, and obviously there aren't really many equivalents when it comes to a LEGO version of Peacemaker, so sacrifices had to be made, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Personally, I was inspired by Jonathan's own custom version of Peacemaker. I've only swapped out a couple of pieces from the parts that he recommended, so I definitely recommend you check out his videos on the Suicide Squad if you want to see exactly how he put that together. The version I put together for my end utilized the helmet from Nova from Guardians of the Galaxy. I initially considered using the Ultron helmets, which are kind of more of like a rounded flat silver without a detail on the front, but honestly it just didn't look quite right with a standard minifigure head, so I switched over to the Nova helmet, which honestly from a distance, in my opinion, looks pretty close. Obviously it does have that kind of printing on the front of the helmet, which I think isn't 100% right for the character, but you gotta make do with what you have. The torso I used was from Captain Marvel, specifically in the Avengers Endgame Final Battle version. This is the torso that appeared in Thanos' Sanctuary 2 command ship, and I think it just works really well for Peacemaker. I've also seen other people online use the collectible minifigure kind of Power Rangers sort of outfit that they've used before, but honestly, I feel like the mix of blue, the star, and the red on the Captain Marvel torso just works very well here. The head I chose was from Han Solo, kind of one of the newer versions of Han Solo. I just felt like it fit the John Cena kind of face very well with the cheekbones and the expression he has as well, with a cocky grin on one side and then a more angry scowl on the other, which I felt was very indicative for the character. For the arms, I used the dual-molded red and nougat arms from the Hyperion minifigure, also from LEGO Marvel, from some of the more comics and animation-based sets. I miss those days when we would just randomly get dual-molded components in Marvel and DC superhero sets, but alas, I feel like those days are long gone. Of course, I switched out the hands to feature his distinctive blue gloves, which obviously you can just get from any minifigure with blue hands, and specifically took the blue belt from Cooper from LEGO Dreams to just showcase the kind of array of different types of ammunition he is always carrying on him. The legs are pretty simple, just dual-molded white and black legs, which you can initially find in the Sushi Chef from LEGO Ninjago Movie's collectible minifigure series, but has recently appeared in the Grand Admiral Thrawn minifigure. For the pistol, I grabbed one of these short silver pistols, which you could get from Beckett in the Solo movie, and then attached a simple silver candlestick to the end to really showcase kind of the long type of silencer weapon that he has in the show. And honestly, with all of those figure parts together, I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. Of course, when I brought him to the premiere, I had to include the official LEGO Eagle for Eagly as well, which appeared in a LEGO City set, and unfortunately, we haven't seen this particular print of the Eagle since. They recolored it to kind of like a vulture / condor type of bird in the LEGO City Safari sets fairly recently, but the eagle has yet to return, which means that it's very expensive on Bricklink, and very tragically, I lost mine at the premiere. But you know, maybe John Cena picked it up. Next up, we have Emilia Harcourt. Now, throughout Season 1, Harcourt mostly just wore this puffy gray vest and a plain black shirt underneath, but honestly, I tried that out and just the plain black didn't look that interesting for the minifigure, so I chose to give her a slightly more interesting torso with kind of a t-shirt print, which you can find from the Tony Stark minifigure in Marvel. I struggled on choosing the hairpiece. Initially, I went for the LEGO Friends Nova hairpiece, but realized it didn't really fit with the vest, so I chose Mad-Eye Moody's hairpiece from the LEGO Harry Potter series instead, which I think fits the character perfectly fine. Obviously, plain black legs and the standard LEGO Jyn Erso / angry female head that they used for almost every single superhero female character nowadays was used for Harcourt, and I feel like this one was probably one of the simplest ones to put together, but I'm actually pretty happy to how close it looks to the character in the show. Next up, we have Vigilante, aka Adrian Chase, a very different interpretation of the Adrian Chase that we've seen in the comics or even in the Arrowverse show, but honestly one of the funniest characters in the show and an all-time favorite. I love the character of Vigilante so much that I actually made technically two different versions of the figure, one with the mask on and with the mask off. Starting off with the mask-off version, this one required a ton of different elements. The head was the Justin Hammer head, which we saw in the LEGO Marvel sets, as well as a couple of other characters. The hair was taken from Anakin Skywalker's Clone Wars appearance in the kind of standard reddish-brown color. The torso, which I actually think works really well for Vigilante, was the most recent Nightwing torso, and then the arms themselves were taken from Syndrome from the LEGO Disney collectible minifigure series to have those dual-molded black and white details. I chose to just use a standard black belt, which you can see in a ton of other minifigures that just use the belts, and the legs were taken from the Scout Trooper, not the latest one, but the second latest one, which instead featured black legs with the white knee pads, which is almost perfect for an on-screen match to Vigilante. I was so happy with how the legs turned out in particular because they almost looked like they were made just for the character. Now, for the mask-on version, I experimented with a ton of different options. I initially tried using the Battle Mech helmet from the collectible minifigure series, which has some silver and black details and then a plain red head underneath, but it honestly made the red look a little bit too overpowering for the character. So instead, I opted for the Soldier 76 head from Overwatch with a classic LEGO Aqua Raiders helmet that kind of has that blue trident going downwards to showcase the blue diagonal stripe on his helmet. It's not a perfect match, and I think there's probably a couple ways it could have been done better, but I'm honestly happy enough with how it turned out that I decided to go with those pieces for the helmeted look on my version of the character. Next up in the supporting cast, we have John Economos. Throughout most of Season 1 and even some of Season 2's trailers, we often see him wearing some sort of a plaid shirt. He changes his style here and there, so I didn't necessarily try to depict one particular outfit, but just chose a minifigure torso that I felt was emblematic of something he would wear, specifically the LEGO Harry Potter torso with a plaid shirt. The head was actually quite tricky to get right. I ended up using the Captain America's Infinity War appearance with the beard, which I think fits the character quite well, but I actually wanted to extend the beard a bit more, so I got the neck beard element from the LEGO Movie's Western Robot to use for the bottom part of the character, and then finally, I took the same hairpiece I used for Amelia Harcourt, but this one in the reddish-brown color from one of the characters in the Minecraft movie. For the legs, I just chose a very simple kind of belt with straps on it in dark blue, and honestly, I felt like that kind of rounded out the character itself. And finally, rounding out the main crew, we have Adebayo. This one was one of the easiest ones to put together because the actress also appeared in the Minecraft movie, so we literally actually have a head custom made for the actress herself. So I just took that character and the hands from that particular minifigure, and for the torso I wanted something a little bit less outlandish than the Minecraft movie appearance, so I just went for a random Ginny Weasley Harry Potter torso, which I felt fit the character well, and finally the hairpiece is from the main character in Encanto, which I'm really actually happy with that piece usage. Mirabelle's hair really only appears on her characters in those sets, but I felt like it just fits a minifigure headpiece so well, especially for Adebayo's appearance in the show. But with that, we can move on to the next group of characters, the Justice Gang. We see two members of the Justice Gang in the Peacemaker Season 2 trailers, so we do know at least two of them are appearing in the show, and so I wanted to depict those two, starting off with Guy Gardner's Green Lantern. Now this one is heavily inspired by my friend Jonathan's own custom minifigure from the Superman movie. I would never have thought of using this torso. It was actually kind of ingenious. It's a Lego City torso that only appeared in like 2 sets, one of which thankfully was a train that I owned, but if you flip the torso around, you actually have a really nice set of green stripes around the shoulders and then a white inner torso, which actually works really well for the character. For the head, I went with Michael Knight from Knight Rider in LEGO Dimensions, and while I considered using the Everyone is Awesome bowl cut hairpiece in yellow for the hair, I actually figured the classic Ron hairpiece from Harry Potter fit the character a lot better. And finally, I stole some dual molded legs from Grand Admiral Thrawn and took the Green Lantern Power Ring from the DC Universe CMF series, which came out back in 2020. And altogether, while it's not necessarily the perfect interpretation of the character, I'm pretty happy with how it looks, especially the head, which I just think fits the Nathan Fillion face for Guy Gardner super well. Next up is Hawkgirl, and this one was another really tricky minifigure to make because while we've gotten an official LEGO Hawkgirl from the LEGO Batman movie, that one was very much based on the super bright comics appearance outfit, whereas in the movies and in Peacemaker she's wearing a Lord Tech sponsored suit, so I had to come up with a different torso to use. I ended up using the Proxima Midnight torso from the LEGO Infinity Saga, and unfortunately, when removing the arms from it, I actually destroyed the golden arm, just cracked into smithereens when removing it, so I had to replace the arm, but sacrifices had to be made for this video. The dual molded arms I actually just took with the white and black detailing from a LEGO collectible minifigure Scientist, as well as the Build a Minifigure Towers, and the legs themselves, I actually decided to use a pair of Speed Champions legs. These only came in one Speed Champions car, but I felt like they worked so well for the figure because if you look at her appearance in the movie, she has this orange stripe running down her legs, which I felt was the closest depicted in these legs. Of course, the wings and helmet are just from the official Hawkgirl figure from Batman, and I just took one of the heads from the Pharrell Williams Over the Moon set to use for her expression, especially because I feel like the skin tone of that newer style of head really matches the character. I did also steal a mace from the collectible minifigure kind of evil knight figure, which I think also works great for the character, and obviously while she appears in Peacemaker really without the wings or the helmet, I really wanted to make a fully suited up version of the character, so this is the one I landed on. The corporate leader of the Justice Gang, Maxwell Lord, appears very briefly during a TV segment in the Superman movie, but appears in much greater detail throughout Peacemaker Season 2, and this is the version of the figure I wanted to depict. We see him wear a tan suit in the trailer, so I just stole one from Professor Lupin in Harry Potter, and the head, I'm honestly really pleased with how it turned out. The actor, of course, is Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, and we see him with a little bit of a hint of a white beard in the trailer. And because of that, I decided to use Vice Admiral Garp from the LEGO One Piece sets, which just came out at the beginning of the month, which I think fits the character so well. I've seen people use this head for James Gunn himself, which I think works okay, but obviously it's missing glasses, but obviously, it works for his brother really well because he doesn't wear glasses. And finally, the hairpiece was just kind of your classic kind of slicked back gray hairpiece, which I stole from one of the characters in the Ahsoka TV series. Judo Master from Peacemaker Season 1 will be making a reappearance in Season 2, and this one was actually a little bit tricky to put together, but I'm pretty happy with what I landed on. I decided to go with the head from the LEGO Marvel Scorpion villain from Spider-Man, and I think that fits the character pretty well, especially with the very angry expression that he's got going on. The torso is from Cersei in the Eternals, especially with that circular emblem and kind of a more detailed sort of printing around the chest, and for the arms, I went with the dual-molded light nougat and dark green gloved arms from Poison Ivy in the LEGO Batman movie. One of the arms has a flower print, which isn't ideal, but it really just fit the character super well to actually have those green gauntlets on the side of the arm, but the upper part of the arm exposed. And finally, since he is almost comically short, I went with dark green mid-legs, which you can find on a couple of different minifigures, but specifically I went with the ones from the CMF Forest Boy. Rick Flag Sr. made his debut in Creature Commandos and later appeared in the Superman movie without his beard dyed because the actor Frank Grillo was unable to dye it as he was filming another role, and thankfully in Peacemaker Season 2 he also appears with a much darker shade of beard than he initially appeared in Creature Commandos, which makes it a lot easier to make him as a custom minifigure. The torso I used was to depict his kind of plain light gray shirt, so I took that from Owen Grady in Jurassic Park, and I chose to use the legs from Commissioner Gordon in the LEGO Batman movie because you can see he actually has a badge that he wears in his legs, which I felt fit the character quite well. The headpiece is from the Jango Fett minifigure from Star Wars, one of the earlier ones before they changed the skin tone, and finally, the hair is from Bruce Wayne in the LEGO Batman movie, and altogether, despite this one being not necessarily the most exciting minifigure on the showcase, I actually think this is probably one of the most accurate ones, down to the badge, the shirt, the head, and everything. In the trailers and throughout Episode 1, we see that Rick Flag Sr. is accompanied by another agent, Sasha Bordeaux, who has a quite rich comics history, but in Peacemaker Season 2 is pretty much just wearing standard civilian clothes. We really only have like one photo of her, and that is of her in this kind of vertical striped shirt, which I realized worked really well with the Oliver Wood character from LEGO Harry Potter. For the legs, I went with another minifigure from the LEGO Batman movie, that is Chief O'Hara, who also has a badge, but this one has a brown belt as well, and for the headpiece, I also just grabbed it from the Pharrell Williams Over the Moon set. This one technically has a hearing aid printed on the side, but I felt like the facial expression was absolutely perfect for the character. I considered one of the other heads, which was winking, because she is winking in one of the teasers, but I actually felt like this just fit the facial features of the actress better, so I went with that one, and again, despite this one not being one of the most interesting minifigures in the showcase, I actually feel like it is one of the more accurate figures that I put together. Now, moving on to some of the final figures in the showcase, the trailers for Peacemaker Season 2 showcased an alternate universe, which is really where the main plot of Peacemaker Season 2 hinges on. You see an alternate hero version of Peacemaker's father, Augie Smith, and his brother. Augie Smith is of course the villainous White Dragon in the main universe who died in Season 1, but he seems to be back with a brand new blue outfit in this alternate dimension, and this was one of the hardest minifigures to put together, because there's really no equivalent facial mask for what he actually has on. So here is what I came up with. It's not perfect, but I honestly think it's close enough where from a distance you can kind of tell who it's supposed to be, and I'm really excited to see the suit in action in the show. So for the helmet, I took it from the LEGO Monkey Kid Silver Demon, which actually has spots for the horns on the head. LEGO doesn't really make blue horn elements. They made a very bright light blue version of that horn piece for the LEGO Harry Potter's Patronus set, but I tried those pieces and they just looked way too bright, so I just decided to go for silver instead. For the headpiece underneath the helmet, I tried so many different options. If I was to be making the standard White Dragon from Season 1, it would have been super easy. I would have just gone with one of the V-Wing pilots from LEGO Star Wars, but unfortunately, there isn't really an equivalent of that in blue. So instead, I decided to go for one of the UFO androids from LEGO Classic Space. Speaking of space, for the large and bulky armor, I went with the CMF Ice Planet armor, which is a blue color armor scheme, and then for the torso, I went with one of the Special Forces clone troopers, which we saw back in the Jek 14 Yoda Chronicles sets in 2013. For the arms, I went with the dual-molded white and blue arms, which can be found in one of the Animal Crossing minifigures, and then finally, for the legs, I went with the book-exclusive Val-Zod Superman minifigure, which has this blue and white detail. This, again, was one of the hardest minifigures to put together, and I literally just had one image of him from a mural as seen in the trailer to go off of. But honestly, with all things considered, I'm actually really happy with how it all came together. I feel like I was able to use the pieces available to me to the best ability, and obviously it's not going to be 100% perfect, especially given LEGO's part availability, but given what I had to work with, I'm very happy with how I was able to pull this one off. In the alternate dimension, we see that Peacemaker's brother Keith is alive and well, and he's featured on the mural alongside his father and brother. I wanted to depict Keith's suit as accurately as possible, but again, it's a pretty tricky one given that there aren't really a ton of alternatives for the pieces used. To depict the visor he has on his helmet, I went with the Luke Skywalker minifigure from the Millennium Falcon with the visor over his head, and then I just decided to go for the standard vintage Cloud City pilot helmet in red, which I think actually works very well for the minifigure, at least from what we can see in the mural. For the torso and legs, I actually went pretty simple. I just decided to use Justin Hammer's Detroit Steel suit, which I think fits the look of the character reasonably well, with the blue legs and kind of the star-spangled detailing, which you can kind of see on the mural. And then finally, I swapped out the arms for Deadshot's arms from the LEGO DC Villains lineup, because he does seem to have these weaponry elements mounted on his arms, kind of like Gatling guns, and this is literally perfect for the character. I feel like it almost looks like the arms were printed just for the character itself, so I am really happy with how I was able to pull that one together. Altogether, again, I have yet to see a ton of this character from the show. I don't even know how much he's going to appear in his suit in Peacemaker Season 2, but I wanted to have all the characters from this alternate universe depicted from the mural in minifigure form, so I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. And finally, that leaves only a couple more really special characters. After seeing James Gunn in person and being a fan of his work for a long time, I knew I had to make a James Gunn minifigure in honor of Peacemaker. Obviously, James Gunn is the writer and director of Peacemaker, as well as Superman and a ton of other movies in the DC universe, and he's basically the head of all things DCU nowadays, alongside Peter Safran, so it felt like a very fitting minifigure to kind of cap off this showcase. Now, for the torso, I just went with the standard Clark Kent minifigure. Obviously, he's just fresh off directing Superman, so it made total sense for me to use that, and for the hairpiece, I also went again with the Vice Admiral Garp minifigure from One Piece, which I think fits the very nice spiked hair he has. You can also find that light gray spiky hair in the Harry Potter Professor Hooch minifigures, in case you don't want to get that large One Piece set just for this. Now, the head is something I really struggled with. I initially was just gonna give him the Admiral Garp headpiece, but honestly, just without the glasses, it didn't look right, because James Gunn pretty much always wears glasses. And so, literally the only LEGO headpiece with a gray or white beard with glasses that I could even find was one for John Hammond from Jurassic Park. I think it makes him look a little too old. It's not the most flattering headpiece to use for the gun, but honestly, we are working on very limited supply here, so this was the best I could do. I'm not fully happy with it, but I think it is literally just the only thing I could have done with LEGO's existing part portfolio. But with that, there is just one more minifigure to cover. Now, James Gunn has been teasing a major cameo near the end of Peacemaker Season 2, and I literally can't think of anybody else it could possibly be other than Superman. I don't know if Superman is going to appear in Peacemaker Season 2, but I figured I might as well make my own custom Superman minifigure given his importance to the DCU as a whole, and how Peacemaker is basically the next installment in this franchise. Now, for the movie version of Superman, I really wanted to make it as detailed as possible. I decided to use the legs from the Spider-Man collectible minifigure from What If Season 1 and the LEGO Marvel Superheroes collectible minifigure series, and I just removed the legs from the hips and gave him standard red hips to depict the trunks. I feel like those dual-molded legs with the line printing and the detailing of red boots just work so well to sell me on the detail for this character. For the torso, I went with the standard very first version of Superman we've ever gotten. I still think that works very well for the character, and I chose to use the rubberized cape which has appeared on some Thor minifigures, as well as, of course, Superman himself in a recent activity book. The headpiece is really just one that you can grab any Superman head for. I chose to use the one from the DC Universe minifigure series, which came out in 2020, because I just felt like the smiling expression fit David Cornsweet very well, but you could also just use the version of Superman's head which they introduced earlier this year, and I think that works totally fine. And finally, for the hairpiece, I just went with kind of a standard hairpiece that we've seen the Man of Steel Superman minifigure use, because he doesn't quite have that iconic S-curl from the comics in the movies, so I went with this more generic hairpiece for Superman. And with that, we have summed up the Peacemaker minifigure showcase. This was so much fun putting together, and honestly a lot more work than I thought. Before my flight back out to New York, I was rapidly gathering these minifigure pieces and filming this video, which is why certain characters that I really wanted to depict, like maybe the rest of the Justice Gang, and I don't know if they're gonna appear in Peacemaker, so I chose not to, or even Michael Rooker's new Eagle Hunter character that we've seen from the trailers, just didn't end up in the showcase because I literally was working on this right up until my flight. I pulled an all-nighter to make these figures and film this video, and I'm really happy with how they were able to turn out, because I think I got pretty much almost every single important character, at least that we know of that we've seen so far in Peacemaker Season 2. But before we knew it was time to actually hit the premiere, so let's transport ourselves to New York and take all these figures to the premiere. This was such a crazy day. Obviously, we kicked things off at one of my favorite restaurants, Fogo de Chão, where we had unlimited Brazilian steak to make sure we were totally full to get ready for the premiere itself. And then, after a quick photo shoot with the Lego Batman in my apartment, we headed off. Let's flash forward to that Uber right now.
Alright, we are on the way to the Peacemaker Season 2 premiere. Gotta give a shout out to my boy Jonathan, Mini Superheroes today. I am his +1, and it's actually crazy because this is the first premiere you've been invited to, like, yourself, right?
Yep, huge honor and dream come true to get to be invited to this, so I mean, HBO Max and DC Studios, thank you for the invite. It's going to be an absolutely awesome night. Peacemaker Season 1 was crazy. Peacemaker Season 2 probably going to be even crazier.
Sounds like it.
This is definitely not a show for kids. We got to put that disclaimer out there. Like, definitely, it is for the audience at which it is rated for. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Probably get to see John Cena, James Gunn, the rest of the gang. So, who knows who else could be there, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's a real dream come true, so come along with us.
I'm hyped. Let's run and gun.
Now, Jonathan was brought in as a special guest, so that way we actually got a chance to walk the red carpet. I've walked the red carpet at a few premieres before, like the Pharrell Williams Piece by Piece movie, actually twice, once in Toronto and once in New York, as well as for LEGO Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy's premiere in LA last year, but this was my first non-LEGO premiere that was actually just superhero focused, so this was absolutely crazy. Obviously, when we got to the theater, it was really funny because the AMC the theater hosted the premiere at is literally my local AMC. I have AMC A-list, so I watch movies here, I would say like once or twice a week, and it was very wild just showing up to my regular movie theater that I'm so used to being at, but seeing it completely decked out in all things Peacemaker. Of course, as we got in, we were treated to some HBO Max branded water bottles. Honestly, I kind of wish I took one home as a souvenir. And then the red carpet opened up for us to take pictures on. This was wild. It was one of the only red carpet experiences where they kind of just let us hang out on the red carpet until the stars arrived, which is certainly not like any of the other carpets I've walked. Even for places like the Fandom Party at Comic-Con, you kind of are ushered onto the red carpet, you get some Getty images taken of you, and then you're ushered off. But this time we just walked on and just talked to people and other influencers, and even stars like Foxy Shazam, the band that does the new intro for Peacemaker Season 2, as well as a ton of my other favorite songs like Evil Thoughts and all that, just kind of randomly walking around the red carpet and hanging out, which was so much fun. We met a ton of people on the carpet and got a chance to just chat with a ton of other influencers and some other people who had been brought out by HBO Max to promote the premiere, and the best part is the lights literally went out during my photo shoot. We had a power outage because it was absolutely pouring outside, and honestly, I just think that means my fit was so tough it made power go out on the red carpet. Now, the crazy thing is that we actually were able to meet up with a ton of of our friends here as well. You see, if you lived in New York and were willing to get up super early the Friday before, you could actually get tickets for a fan area for the Peacemaker premiere. And so, bright and early on Friday last week, my buddy Zach and I got up at like 5 a.m. and lined up for 4 hours outside Midtown Comics in Times Square to get tickets for us and our friends. So honestly, I'm very grateful to Jonathan for bringing me as his +1, and because of that, we got to walk the red carpet, but technically, I just had tickets as well because of lining up for this for 4 hours on Friday. Because of that, a ton of our friends got to go. Lloyd, Jonathan's old friend, got to join us, as well as Sarisa, my co-founder at Nui, my startup, Zach, our top engineer at my startup, and Anna, my friend from college, all assembled, and we basically hit the premiere as a full-on gang, which was awesome. Some would say a justice gang. Of course, as we made our way into the theater, things just got even crazier. We were given some exclusive Peacemaker tank tops, which were so cool, and we even got a chance to enjoy some Peacemaker branded popcorn, which honestly just made me feel like I want to strive for peace, no matter what it takes, and some Peacemaker chocolate bars as well. We saw some reused signs from San Diego Comic-Con like Eagly's Perch, which was really funny. Of course, I had to get my photo with the Lego Eagle before I lost it off my badge at that particular event, and we just got a chance to enjoy walking around. Zach actually saw John Cena walk onto the red carpet, which was totally crazy. I don't know how he saw him and we didn't, which is really funny, and before we knew it, we were all directed to head into one of the massive theaters, where the show was about to begin. And then it was time to run and gun. The gun never misses. The gun didn't jam. Reload the gun. James Gunn.
Well, we just walked the red carpet. That was so much fun. Got to see so many cool people. We saw Foxy Shazam.
Yeah, we got a photo with them.
Yes, that was so cool. Got to see Brandon Davis, my all-time hero brother. He's the man. Shout out Phase Hero if you're not listening. I don't know what you're listening to. But we're about to head in. It's going to be great.
Yes, let's see it.
Yes.
It's James Gunn! Loud noises!
He got nothing to say!
That's not true. That's not true. Okay, it's very important. Very rarely does a TV show, an episodic,
Never had a premiere.
Starsky and Hutch,
Never had a premiere.
A Taxi,
I don't know what happened.
MASH,
Maybe they did do premieres back then.
All
I
the
don't
Family.
know.
No.
All the Family.
Night Court.
Yeah.
Night Court never had a premiere.
Never had a premiere.
Wait, there was that one? No, there wasn't. My point is, rarely does a TV show have a premiere. The reason we're doing this is because of you guys. I mean, look at all this. We got cosplay to the max. I came dressed for the occasion. We got the boss in the house. I just want to kick this thing off, and I don't want to speak for you. You got something else to say after? That's cool. This doesn't happen without you. Thank you so much for making this possible. What a hell of an achievement for a TV show to have a freaking premiere. Thank you guys so much.
And we are so grateful to all of you guys for making this show something. Everyone said, Peacemaker, what a stupid idea when we started this out.
Yes.
And it ends up to be the biggest show ever on HBO Max. We're going to make it even bigger this season. It's going to be incredible. And I love this season of television more than anything for so many reasons. And one of them is this is my family. John and Jen and Steve and Danielle and Freddie is the greatest group of people you could ever work with. I love these guys, and I cannot wait for you guys to see this episode and then all the shows after. Much love.
Enjoy the dance number.
Yeah, Peacemaker! Oh, I got it! Peacemaker! I got it on camera!
We got that.
What an insane event. I am so jealous Mini Superheroes Today got the John Cena fist bump. That is absolutely legendary. And of course, I did bring the entire cast to the premiere in minifigure form and got a chance to showcase them inside the theater itself. Episode 1 was awesome, and I cannot wait to see where Season 2 goes next. It certainly was absolutely crazy, and again, certainly very R-rated. I will say that it is absolutely not for kids. If there are kids watching this, probably, I would say, do not watch Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 1, especially because of one particular thing that happens in the first episode, but it was absolutely crazy. Loved the event, and I definitely love everything that Gunn is doing with the DCU. I'm very excited to see it grow into its own universe, and we'll see where the rest of it shapes up, but this was absolutely amazing. Of course, we had to wrap up the evening with a delicious burger meal at Au Cheval, one of my favorite burger restaurants in New York. Got almost the entire gang up. Teresa did have to go back home and get some work done, as per usual, but we got everyone else to join up, and overall, certainly one of the most memorable experiences ever. Everybody who attended got a chance to have exclusive Peacemaker helmets, which were also given away at Comic-Con, so now technically I have two, and the entire thing will go down as one of the most legendary nights of all time. I hope you enjoyed this special minifigure showcase. I don't really do that often for any sort of media out there, but I was absolutely inspired by my buddy Jonathan to put this together, especially because he's probably not gonna do one for Peacemaker, so you know what? Duckbricks had to step up. Bro thinks he's mini superheroes today right now. And overall, big shout out to my buddy Jonathan for actually giving me a chance to experience this event. We really try to kind of help each other out. Like last year, I got him as my +1 to the Piece by Piece Pharrell Williams premiere in New York, and now this year he got me as his +1 to this. So, you know, we just kind of make sure that we all get a chance to do these events together. It is so much fun. And now onwards and upwards to even more crazy LEGO adventures for the rest of the year. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at my custom LEGO Peacemaker minifigures. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to maybe try to recreate any of these, or if you have ideas on how to make them even better and more accurate to the source material. That's all for this one. Talk to you later, and stay tuned for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye for now.